Good morning, everyone, or whenever you're going to watch this live. Welcome to our legal entrepreneurship live collaboration with my friend and colleague, Karia Safida. She's going to join us very shortly. We're doing a take 2 of our original one, which I think is supposed to have been last month. And then I attempted to wing it by myself. And the video didn't pan out. So we're going to do, hopefully she'll join us soon. And she's going to lead the discussion on legal entrepreneurship. Morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm all right. I made it. 11
I'm
o'clock.
glad you made it. And I'm glad you're live. Take 2.
Take 2. Yeah, I was just telling everyone. That you're gonna be leading the discussion. So let's jump in so we don't waste any more time.
Okay, sure. So, I get a lot of questions from people who want to start their own law firm. And they always ask me, how do you do it? What do you need to do? They're interested, but they're not sure how to go about starting their own law firm. And so Lisa and I thought it would be a great live to do just to talk about this option that is available to all legal practitioners to start their own practice and what it involves and what you need to think about before starting your own practice. It's very interesting because legal entrepreneurship is like the core of the legal industry. None of these large firms would exist without someone starting their own practice. Every law firm began as a small law firm or a solo practitioner branching out on their own, and they slowly built up a reputation and started employing staff members. So it's a huge part of the legal industry. Law firms don't exist without legal entrepreneurship. The two go hand in hand. And when someone asks me what is legal entrepreneurship, basically it's when you're in a legal services business. You offer your services, your legal services to the public. That's what it is in a nutshell. And it could be any service, but you are in the legal industry offering those services to the public. And what we're seeing is, and the statistics don't lie, half of legal practitioners are solo practitioners. They're operating for their own account on their own. And that, it's almost like a triangle, like at the bottom you have all your solo practitioners, and then they'll hire staff members or other attorneys, and they become small law firms and then medium-sized law firms. And then right at the top you have your large law firms. So it's very much a core of the legal industry. And at some point, I think everyone considers, do I start my own practice? Um, I think it's a natural progression in someone's career that, okay, I'm tired of being in a law firm. I want to start something else, something separate, something in my own name, and create a legacy. That is what a lot of people are after. And there's a lot of other reasons which we will get into for starting a law firm and against a law firm. And I think a lot of females always come to me and say, "Oh, it's so great to see a female starting their own law firm." And I think there's a lack of representation. We're still not in the majority, right? We still have a long way to go. We're sitting at 43% of legal practitioners are females. It is better every year; it increases. Um, And if you look at law firm ownership, 47% of law firms are still male owned law firms, and 27% are fully female owned. and then 26% are mixed ownership. So if we want to see the representation, we want to see more females, or we want to see more people of color owning law firms, we need to start supporting those legal practitioners, those female legal practitioners, and those businesses. We can't expect there to be representation if no one is supporting those practices and those practitioners. So I think supporting a business is very, very easy. I think it's easy to follow a page, like a post, share a post, comment, refer a friend. It doesn't have to be using a service per se. You can promote a business without necessarily using their services. And if you want to see other law firms succeed, especially female law firms and law firms of color, then we need to start sponsoring and promoting these law firms. So I think, Lisa, let's get into why not to start a law firm. Lisa did this lovely post on why not to start a law firm and why to start a law firm. So let's get into that. Lisa, are you on mute? We cannot hear
Sorry.
you.
Yeah. So when I did that post, I was challenged in the comments about should provide 30 reasons why we should start a law firm. And I think the reason I led with the negative is because, in my opinion, it's what comes to mind quicker. So often the wrong reasons to do something come to mind a lot quicker because sometimes we just, when it comes to certain decisions, we tend to make them very, sometimes with some emotion attached to it, which is not wrong, but it's less of a rational exercise. So when it comes to your career, when it comes to starting a law firm, we know the prestige that's associated with it. We know that our parents probably put us into the field because they wanted us to earn money, right? And I'm sure Haria would testify to the fact that there's no becoming rich, instantly. So, but of course, our parents had good intentions for letting us study that because they saw somewhere down the line we are going to make a decent amount of money. So, I think when it comes to the incorrect reasons for starting a law firm, number one would be the prestige, right? Which I think a lot of candidate attorneys, especially, they realize there's not much prestige. So there isn't any prestige nor glamour to the profession because it's really, really hard work. And I think more so in the case of you running the business by yourself, and most times you can't afford to employ staff. So when you first start out, you will be everything to all people. And if you want to start out a law firm because of the aesthetics, I would say, prestige can be built up to a positive extent over time. But if you're starting a law firm for the aesthetics of prestige and how it looks and your offices and your letterhead and your reception area and your hospitality, then obviously that is all external, based on the externals, and it's not a sound reason to start a law firm. I think if anything, prestige is built over, taking into account the reputation, the good reputation of the owner, which will ultimately contribute to building a good brand. Another reason is something you brought up just now, which is that it's the next logical step. So I know now a lot of the CAs pending admission, they just got admitted, and now they're thinking of opening a law firm. And you know, it's you have to do what's right for you. So you could open a law firm 10 years down the line, 10 years after you get admitted. It doesn't mean that because you got admitted, because you finished your PVT, that okay, it's the next logical thing to do. It may not even be you know, on the cards for you, so to speak, right? So we don't start a law firm because it's on the next, it's just what everybody does at a certain stage, right? That's the wrong reason. Another one, I'm trying to do this from memory now. Another one is, I think, having a bad relationship to authority. So perhaps you did your articles, maybe you worked in the legal field for a while, and you have a really bad time taking instructions. You have a really bad time being accountable. Um, you have a really bad time taking feedback from people higher up. That's not the reason to start a law firm. Because if anything, you are going to have to be even more accountable for the business, right? Because you're not just going to be accountable for the legal side, you're going to be accountable for the commercial side as well. So you don't start a law firm because, in fact, you'll need to work on those things. If you want to become a law firm owner, but you have issues with accountability, with taking feedback, criticism, all those things, or even just relationship to authority in general, then of course those are things you're going to have to work on because that's not the reason. Okay, you don't just do it because I want to run my own show at my own pace and I want to be answerable only to myself. And there's a whole lot of psychology that goes behind that, which you might think is easier. You might get away with certain things, but at the same time, it also makes it harder on you because you are going to be the go-to person for everything, and you are the business is you. So if somebody criticizes your business and if you don't have a good time taking criticism, whether it's constructive or destructive, then of course that thing is going to come back to bite you. Um, another wrong reason would be where you are the boss and you don't want to do any work. So I'll start a law firm. So I just delegate to my minions. Okay. That might come maybe 10 years down the line. Like I said, when you first start, you are going to be all things to all men. Uh, you're going to be the go-to person. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to keep uh, an eye on every little aspect of the business, going to court, drafting, consultations, HR, all those things. So, and even if you can afford to hire staff at the outset, it's not going to be. You're still going to have to be the oversight. So you cannot, especially when you first start a law firm, you might hire the best of the best, but as the business owner, you certainly have a vested interest in keeping one eye open or sleeping with one eye open, right? So it's not going to be a case of you just delegate and you never go back to what you delegate. You never follow up, or you don't go and check in on the person to whom you delegated whatever. So that's another wrong reason. Another one would be, and this can be a good reason and a bad reason, is that you're looking for flexibility because you want to be able to knock off when you want to knock off and not have to apply for leave and things like that. So, as I said, this can be good or bad, and it's negative in the sense that you don't start a law firm because you want flexibility. Okay. And as my colleague would elaborate later, is that something you have to work towards. You don't achieve it immediately. You don't achieve that work-life integration easily. In fact, sometimes you gotta err on the side of overcommitting and being imbalanced in order to find that sweet spot that works for you. So if you're just looking for flexibility, I can almost guarantee you're not going to get 5 years because, like I said, the business depends on you. So you are not going to be able to knock off, even if you knock off when you want to knock off. Say you want to leave at 12 every day. I don't know. Ask any law firm owner if they are ever able to do that consistently. If you want to do that, inevitably you're going to get calls from the office. You're going to get, especially if it's your CAs or there's a business decision or there's a payment to be made, you're inevitably going to be worried or harassed, right? A true business owner who cares about the law firm is not going to just shut down the moment they leave, they step out the door, they pull out of the parking lot. They're going to know that they are basically on call, even if they leave the physical office at 12, for example. So that's also not, so if you're looking for the flexibility, it's something you're going to have to achieve in the long term, but it's not the reason. You don't start the law firm because you want to be the boss and you want to be able to knock off whenever you want to knock off, right? Um, the other one would be obviously making money. So the law firm is a business like any other type of business. You're going to make money from your profits, right? And your pricing model will also factor into that. So you're not going to expect out the gates that in year one, I'm going to make, you know, R1 million out the gate or whatever. Because again, we had this perception, our parents had this perception that law is a very lucrative career. But remember, once you get into the business side of things, once you become a law firm owner, um, as I said, the business depends on you, the profitability depends on you, the productivity of your firm depends on you. So you are not realistically going to make bank. You might even break even in the first couple of years. So you might also need like backup funds and things like that to just to tide you over. And if you have staff, you might need backup funds to be able to pay salaries and things like that. So you shouldn't get into law firm because of the money. You're gonna have to pay yourself a salary. That's a must. But you're not going to make thousands and thousands in your first 5 years, unless of course you have contacts. But here we are talking about people that are regular Joes and uh, are going to basically begin from scratch.
Yeah,
I'll leave it there for now. I won't lecture any further. I think they get the
yeah.
point.
I think there is this misconception that when you start, you're gonna have so much money and be a millionaire, and doesn't always work like that. Most law firms, when they start with zero and they start from scratch. Zero followers, zero clients. There are very few law firms where they get to take the clients from their previous law firm that they work for. Um,
Hmm.
so that's an outline. It's not always possible. And of course, it's up to the client who they want to work with. And I think as much as there are negatives, there are also positives, right? There are pros and cons to
Yeah.
everything. So when I look at the reasons to start a law firm, a lot of those reasons that you mentioned could also become a positive. Like you could make money in the future, right? You could have flexibility in the future. Um, I think it's unrealistic to expect that it will happen from day one. And I think that's the misconception. People think from day one, they're going to have a lot of money in the bank, they're going to have a lot of clients, and they're going to clock off at 12 o'clock. Um, I think that's an unrealistic perception that people have. It's positive in that in the long run you could have those things if you work hard and you build a legacy and you build a business, right? I think it's very important to understand that it takes a lot of hard work, and you reap what you sow. So you simply can't open up a law firm and just expect it to be successful. There's a lot that goes in behind the scenes. Um, a lot of people also say they want to start a law firm because of the toxic work environment. It might be, yes, that where you're working is toxic, but it might also be that you as a person are contributing to that. And you need to ask yourself, what are you doing to contribute to that? I would recommend maybe work for someone else and see if it's the same. I do know that in the legal industry, there is some issues there is a toxic legal industry. There are things that are not okay. There's candidate attorneys being mistreated. There's females being undermined. There's sexual harassment in the workplace. There are those concerns in the legal industry. And that's why I say maybe move to a different law firm if you can, and try to find a fit for yourself. Where are you feeling the most comfortable, and where is it the best fit? And if you can't find your place, perhaps then maybe you should start your own law firm. Maybe you're not meant to work for someone else, but you don't start a law firm for one reason. I think you've got to have lots of reasons. You need to have multiple reasons that's driving you towards working for yourself. Like eventually you want to have the money. Eventually you want to have the flexibility. You want to build a legacy. A lot of people also start their own law firm because they want to build their career and they want to take control of their career. Maybe whoever they work for was limiting them. Oh, you only have to do litigation, but they want to do something else. And they weren't allowed to do perhaps IP law, for example. It does allow you to collaborate and partner with other legal practitioners and professionals, which is a really good positive. I enjoy working with other people and partnering with them. It does also allow you to give back to the community. I know a few law firm owners who have started NPOs and they give back to the community without charging them, which is a great thing to do. If you are into that sort of work and you just want to give back to the community and provide your services free of charge, then I think that would be great if that's what you want to do. Yes, Anishka, I see your comment. Yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes patience and strong determination. And we'll get into all those factors like considering your niche when you start your law firm. I think the big issue with a lot of law firms out there is that there's a huge lack of support. Um, there's not enough training on how to run a business. I find your LLB degree teaches you all about the law, but we are missing the business knowledge and the business administration side of things. And so we do see 50% of businesses fail within the first 1 to 5 years, right? It's very difficult to break into the market. Um, there are all sorts of challenges when you start, and we'll get into that later. Um, but you also need to ask yourself, are you ready for this? And do you have the skills for this? Because it takes a set of skills. You need to have a set of skills as a person to start your own law firm. And I always say the first skill that you need is to be creative. You need to think out of the box, and you need to think, how are you going to be different to everyone else? And you need to think, how are you going to market yourself? How are you going to differentiate yourself from your competitors? So it's very important that you have creativity. Yes, Anushka, I see your comment. Lack of support is so sad. Um, yeah, there is a huge lack of support going on in the legal industry. And it's just really, really unfortunate. I hope in the future that there will be some changes by the LPC, and some sort of mechanisms and structures put in place to provide more support to law firm owners. Um, there's a huge lack of support. Um, Sure. I was thinking of starting a law firm ownership sort of group where we can meet up and discuss all the issues we're dealing with and how to overcome them. Let me know if you would be interested or anyone else would be interested. But yes, lack of support is a big problem. I think there's so much work that needs to be done. Um, and there's not much that we can go to in terms of courses or people or mentors. There's a lack of that in the legal industry. And I find a lot of people won't share how they became successful. They won't pass on their knowledge or their skills. They want to hoard it and keep it to themselves, and they see you as a threat more than anything. And that's really, really, really sad, because now there's such a gap between the people on top and the people at the bottom. And we need to bridge that gap, and make it fair for everyone. Um, the other skill I think you need to ask yourself, if you have, is, are you a risk taker? Because this is a very risky business. There are months where you will earn a lot, and there might be months where you might not earn a lot. You don't know where your next client is coming from. And so you need to be comfortable with that uncertainty, and you need to have um, very strong business knowledge. And I think that is the one thing I find is very much missing. I mean, even when you work for a law firm, you might not be exposed to the business side of things. You might not understand everything that gets involved. Um, and then you need to be able to manage many things all at once. You've got a lot of spinning plates. You've got the accounting that needs to be done. You need to send out quotes, you need to do emails, you need to make sure your clients pay you, you need to do the legal work, you need to market your business. I need to apply for a new Fidelity Fund certificate. I need a new BE certificate. I need to audit my trust account. I need to do a new price list for next year. Like, there's so many things all happening on top of all the legal work. And you need to be able to manage that, especially because when you start, you're probably going to be alone, and it's probably just going to be you. And you need to be okay with managing multiple things at the same time. Um, and then, of course, communication and relationship building skills are very important. You need to be able to build relationships with your clients, your partners, professionals in the industry. You need to be the go-to person, but also an easy person to work with. You don't want to be difficult, that you become known as the difficult person. Don't work with so and so, and people are completely put off by you, or your clients are put off by you and they don't want to work with you because you're totally difficult, right? Lawyers are renowned for having that arrogance, and that rudeness. I don't think that is the way to go. I think we all are human beings, and we need to treat each other like human beings. Another skill or mindset is that you need to be very resilient and persistent. You need to have thick skin in this game. You need to be able to learn from your failures and your setbacks and your challenges, and be able to take criticisms without it actually affecting you, right? It's a very tough industry to be in. And then I think lastly, you need to be able to manage your stress. You're going to be overwhelmed. There's going to be a lot on your plate. And so if you're struggling already to have a work-life balance and manage your stress, it's probably going to worsen when you start your own law firm. So you need to figure out how you're going to deal with the stress, how you're going to have a work-life balance. Um, those are all things I would ask yourself, are you ready for this, right? Do you have these skills? Can you manage? Can you do it? Because it's not cut out for everyone. I do know people who have started their own law firm, closed down, and they went back to work for someone else because it turned out to be harder. And then a lot of legal entrepreneurs face challenges. Um, excuse me, a lot of it is the corruption in the legal industry. I actually commented on an article for Property Professional where we spoke about the corruption and the bribery that's happening in the conveyancing industry. Um, so that is something that is difficult to deal with because a lot of people feel like they need to pay someone to give them clients, and obviously that's not permitted. Um, Capital is a huge challenge people face with. Where are they going to find the funds? Um, I always say either you're loaning it from the bank or you're loaning it from someone else, a family, a friend, or somehow you've got to save up for this. Where could you cut back on your expenses to try and save up to open up a law firm? I had a lady ask me, where do you get the capital? Because she wants to start her own law firm, but she's got no money. You need to figure out and be a problem solver where you're going to get the money from, right? Um, and then I spoke about this earlier. It's a lot of women face the sexual harassment in the workplace. They're being looked down upon by men, especially I find the older generation. They come from a generation where women weren't allowed to practice or they weren't in those roles. And so they struggle with it. And then the other two challenges would be clients and getting clients. And that to me is really a marketing issue. You need to be able to market yourself in a way that you differentiate yourself and that your clients come to you. And then mentorship or business coaching. There's very few who want to mentor other law firm owners. Like I said, people are keeping on to the information. They don't want to share strategies or skills or things that they've done in their business to make it a success because they feel very threatened. There are gatekeepers in the industry, and it's such a shame that this is what is happening. Yes, Anushka, I see your comment. It would be so cool if bigger law firms had to take smaller startups under their wing, like a big sister or brother role, and share work for the first 2 or 3 years with perhaps a referral fee. That would be so great. That would be so great if that happened. I know a law firm owner where another law firm owner referred work to her. She said, take this client because she had 0 clients. The lady was so nice. She said, take this client. I'll teach you how to do this type of litigation. And you have this client and you run with it. And that's all she does now. And that would be so great if we could help each other out, pass on skills, pass on clients, pass on matters. Unfortunately, the legal industry is very stingy, and that doesn't happen. Um, I would be very happy if that did happen. And that is why I think it's so great to connect with other law firm owners and share work amongst each other and help each other grow. It would be totally great. And now let's get into how do you actually start your legal practice. Lisa, I just want to check, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that part you mentioned about mentorship and business coaching and the lack of support. I think there's one thing we can do is we can take the power back. So if it's not happening within the industry, if things that we want to see are not happening, then I think it's very incumbent upon people like you and me and others with a similar mindset that we start implementing a lot of these things like, support groups. And I've got the business law firm owners coaching course that I'm developing. We've got to support each other. And of course, it's really not in the hands of the bigger firms, because if anything, they are ironically are not going to be the ones to share anything or be of any support. If they do, it's usually a PR exercise, or it's something that they're going to get a cut from or benefit from in some way. So I think in terms of supporting, and I mean, it goes for male and female, I think it's really high time that people like us started stuff on our own, like you said, creativity and, you know, maybe a bit of risk taking on our part. But I think once we are able to meet a need amongst our fellow practitioners and aspiring law firm owners, then I think there will be a little bit more maybe courage on their part to take the leap of faith. And of course, take it for the right reasons because we're going to be giving them intellectually honest information. And if they get the information and then say, no, you know what, I'm really not cut out for this, then of course they've made a very informed decision not to embark on legal entrepreneurship. But I think we really need to take. I know I'm doing it. I think you are also on the verge of doing it. So I think if we can inspire more of our colleagues to do the same, because there really isn't much to start to owning a legal business. Like there aren't really any trade secrets. I always say a law firm is a law firm, whether doesn't matter the size or the type of clients, the business model is basically the same. So there aren't really any secrets to divulge. It's just a case of the so-called successful ones are able to like really build on their brand. I think that's what really elevates a law firm. It's not really about the business side of things. So I think we need to also debunk a lot of that and demystify it. Law is a business, law firm is a law firm, the strategy is the same, the tactics are very much the same. um, but it's, are there people willing to sit down with aspiring law firm owners and like walk through the stuff that they might have learned by trial and error? Can we now be that kind enough to, for people not to want them to go through that trial and error, but we share our experiences. We say, okay, I tried this, it didn't work. This is what you can do, and you can elevate your entrepreneurial journey, and you can make it go a lot faster than if I didn't share this information with you.
Yeah, yeah. I think we need to have more of those sort of support groups. There's a huge lack of support in the industry. And I think um, it's really sad because a lot of us feel like we're all alone. We're going through it all on our own. And I think a lot of us are actually facing the same challenges. And so, if we could all join forces and help each other overcome those challenges, I think the legal industry would be much better. And we'd have a higher success rate for law firms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the sad
Mm-hmm.
reality is most of them don't make it. Um,
Yeah.
and and I also think it would be great if there was some sponsors and people sponsoring law firms. I feel like the big law firms have all the capital. I mean, it would be great if they sponsored these types of support groups to help build the legal industry and the next generation of law firm owners. But let's see how that goes. I think it's something to work on in the future. It's something that I'm very interested in because I myself am going through it, and seeing the lack of support.
Mm.
And if I'm going through it, I'm sure everyone else is also going through it. And I feel like we could definitely all learn from each other and help each other. And all of us deserve to be successful, in my opinion, and all of us can be successful if we had the right support. So let's go on to starting a legal practice. What should you consider before starting a law practice? And I think the first thing you need to consider is your niche selection. What services are you going to offer? Are you going to offer one specialist service, maybe intellectual property law? Or are you going to be a boutique law firm? You offer a few legal services? Or are you going to be a generalist, someone who practices in all areas of law? You take on whatever comes your way. You have to ask yourself what kind of law firm you are going to be and what your services will be. And then once you've decided on your services, you need to ask yourself, who is your target market? Who are you going to serve? What type of client are you going to serve? It's what we call a Cinderella client. You know, who is your Cinderella client? That the one type of client that needs you. And you need to be very specific, right? To differentiate yourself, you need to be very specific. Oh, I help female entrepreneurs. I think that's very, very generalist. Maybe you help female entrepreneurs who are makeup artists in Santon or something like that, right? You want to really drill down and be as specific as possible. And then funding, we spoke about funding, where you're going to get your funds from. And then the biggest issue I find is that people don't do market research. They don't research where the gap is in a market. Um, they don't have any idea on the statistics. They have no idea about the legal industry and what's happening right now, or they start a law firm without a business plan. I do not recommend that. The one thing I say is please don't go in blind and don't wing it. Rather, go in with a plan. If you have a plan, you're less likely to fail, right? So have a business plan, and your business plan is supposed to set this out. It's supposed to set out what your services are, who's your target market, your pricing model, where you're getting the funding. You should have spreadsheets of what your fee income is going to look like for the next 5 years, what you're going to charge. You should have a marketing plan in there. So there's all sorts of things you need to think about and really do your research and understand this is what goes into it. If you're not capable of understanding finance or marketing, I think you need to go and find someone that can teach that for you. When you start your law firm, you need to contact the LPC for your province, because I think for each province it's slightly different. And there's usually a bunch of forms you need to fill out. And they list all the requirements to start a law firm in that province. So they will require you to open up a trust account. You need to go to the banks, do some research, find out what it costs. Do they have the sweeping function, etc.? You need to think about the name of your law firm. What are you going to call yourself? They're very strict with the naming conventions. It needs to consist of your name and your surname, or at the very least your surname. If you are incorporated, it has to have an Inc. You're no longer allowed to add law to it. Like I cannot be Safida Law. I could be Safida Attorneys. And most people just do their name, right? Here is Safida Inc. Because that's what the LPC requirements require. And then you need to ask yourself, are you going to do this in partnership with someone else and have a partnership? Are you going to be a solo practitioner? Are you going to register an incorporation with CIPC? You need to ask yourself what kind of business structure you are going to have. I recommend starting as a sole practitioner and just operating in your own name. It's probably the easiest. And then you can always incorporate later, right? And then there is this lovely course called the Practice Management course. It's offered by Lead, if I'm not mistaken, and it's a 4-month online course. And they have 8 modules, and it is compulsory for anyone starting their own law firm to either do it before they start their own law firm or within 1 year of starting their own law firm. And it's all virtual, online, pre-recorded lessons. You have 3 assignments that you need to do, and then online tests and quizzes. So I'll quickly run through the modules for you. Module 1 is General Introduction to Management. That is self-study. Read the module. You get a stack of notes for each module. Module 2 is Risk Management and Insurance. You have an assignment on this. And then module 3 is Law Business Finance. This is basically accounting. And you have an assignment on this as well. And then module 4, Systems and Technology. Module 5, Practice Administration. Module 6, marketing of legal services, Module 7, human resources management, and Module 8, strategic management, are all self-study. And then the other assignment is you actually have to submit a business plan, which is really great. I wouldn't recommend starting a firm without a business plan. And I do recommend you do this course before you start your law firm. I think it's very difficult to be managing everything that a law firm practice requires, and on top of it, be studying and doing legal work. So I know some people do it in the first year, and it's very tough to manage both. If you can try to do this course before you start your law firm, then that would be great. That would be my advice. It's only 4 months, and it's majority self-study, and then you watch the online videos for the lectures. And then, of course, you need to register for the Fidelity Fund Certificate, and you need to register with the Financial Intelligence Center. And of course, you need to think about your RMCP and those forms and how you're going to fit clients. And then the next thing you need to ask yourself is, what sort of equipment and software do you need? Most law firms require accounting software. Most of us don't like to do accounting or don't know how to do accounting. Also, a really big gap in the legal industry. Lawyers can't manage money or accounting. And then if you're doing a specialist area of law like conveyancing, you would probably need your conveyancing software. And then like general things like a desk and a laptop and a chair and a printer and stationery and internet. And you might need to subscribe for legal databases or case law. You need Microsoft Office and your licenses. You need your emails. You need to think about, what about your logos and your websites? Are you going to hire a graphic designer? Are you going to hire a web developer? Are you going to try and do it all yourself? I know a lot of people go into Canva and they do it themselves, and things like business cards. And you also need to think about your privacy policy and your PAPIA policy and any disclaimers you're going to have. What about your mandates? What will your quotes look like? I mean, there's a lot of things involved that you need to think about and set up. And then on top of it, there's your marketing, right? How are you going to market yourself? Are you doing Google ads? Are you doing legal articles? Are you doing social media? I always say go with social media. It's free because at the beginning you're already low on funds. Like, which platforms are you going to use? Are you going to hire someone to do your posts, or are you going to teach yourself and do it yourself like I did? So you need to think about all these things before you even start your law firm. What about offices? I know some people, they get offices and reception and fancy desks and chairs, and I think to myself, that's a lot of expenses to start upfront, especially if you don't have existing clients. So you need to think about, are you going to work remotely? Are you going to have remote offices? Is it going to be a hybrid work environment? Are you going to be strictly office based? Are you going to hire someone to help you? There's so many things you need to think about. And a lot of people are overwhelmed. But if you have a business plan, you need to set out all these things. You even need to have a stationery account and go, well, this is what I need for stationery, how much it's going to cost me. In the business plan, they ask you for your logos, they ask you for your domain name. So it's almost like you're thinking about things and setting up things as you do the business plan, which is really great. Lisa, I don't know at this point if you want to add anything. I'd like to say, good services always trumps a fancy office. I know a lot of people have this perception that you need to have fancy offices, and I don't think that is the case.
Yeah, I think that's my hue and cry when I look at LinkedIn and all of our colleagues starting firms, and it's all about the photo shoot and you know the reception and mainly the aesthetics. Okay, and then of course you never hear from them again, and that's where it matters because you want to hear about your business journey, right? So it's, again, it comes down to sharing your information for others who might want to embark on the same thing. If you present a very aesthetically pleasing journey, which, like anything else that's new, you have a honeymoon phase, and but eventually the reality of becoming a business owner is going to kick in, and that's where you don't hear from those same people that post all those nice pictures when they're starting, and you see the nice rug and the logo in the you know in the reception, and the fancy furniture, and you know for me it just paints a, if not a wrong but an imbalanced picture. And again, those people that do that, as much as they're doing it perhaps to get business as well, would also like to hear, it'll be only fair to share your business journey. Would continue to share the journey. So even if you end up closing down the practice, let us know, right? So at least it sort of balances to a little small extent, but it provides a counter to what we usually see, which is just the aesthetics. And definitely, you can operate out of a pigeonhole and give people the best service. In fact, I think there are a lot of law firms that still operate like that, that haven't actually, they're too modest maybe to upgrade or to move out, but they're operating like a large law firm where they're putting out very high standard of work, legal representation, their CAs are trained properly. So definitely, I agree with that. You rather focus on your reputation as a legal practitioner, building that, which will inevitably factor into the brand of your firm, and then just delivering a high quality of work, um, and of course being a good communicator and things like that, so that no matter what you start off with, even if you never move to that, nice office in Santon, but people don't really care about that. They're actually more interested in the level of work that you're putting out. So for sure, at the same time, upgrading should always be on the cards. You can only work with your limited resources for a while. You should always have upgrading your premises, your equipment, your technology, your software. You should always have that at the middle of your mind, I won't say at the back of your mind, because it also contributes to being more efficient if you have better premises and better equipment and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. We should always be trying to improve, right? Always be trying to improve. I don't think any law firm wants to just stay the same. Um, and I think it's a good thing to want to always improve. And I think if your law firm is doing really well and you can afford to, then do that, especially with putting systems in place to help you to be more efficient and to run your practice more efficient. So the last thing that I want to talk about, and I know it's already 12, but the last thing that I want to talk about is your pricing model. I know everybody wants to know about the pricing model. And there's so many new ways to price and things you can consider. And I always say the best thing to do is ask yourself, how many hours are you willing to work every day, especially if you want that work-life flexibility? And what does your ideal day look like? And then try to build your work around that, right? That's always the best. And if you put in place systems and structures now and boundaries, then you're going to set yourself up for success. So there's a couple of ways that you can charge. Excuse me. Let me grab a bit of water. So the two most common would be your hourly rate and your flat fee model. And I'll discuss a whole bunch of other models after that. But those are the two that's very common in South Africa. An hourly rate is where you charge an hourly fee for work, right? We usually see this in all the firms, the billable hours, right? You've got to work X amount of hours to reach, that target that you have at the end of the month. And as you level up, your target gets bigger and bigger, and you need to work more and more hours. And the problem with that is there are only 24 hours in a day. And so, how do we work around that? And the way to work around that is to perhaps have a flat fee model. So, some services you will see will have a flat fee model. Think of deceased estates in administration, they charge a percentage, and that's it. Um, so there are pros and cons of each. Like I said, with the hourly rate, you end up working a lot of hours. And with the flat fee model, you really need to streamline your processes and understand how many hours does it take you to do this task or this matter, and then build that into how much you're going to charge. And you really need to define the scope of the work and say, okay, for this matter, I'm going to charge X amount and it includes X, Y, and Z. If you want A, I charge extra, right? Like you need to really define the scope of your work. On average, when I Googled, most attorneys are charging between 1,000 and 3,000 Rand per hour, depending on their experience, right? And then I get a lot of questions. How do I calculate this hourly rate? Okay, how do I calculate my flat fee? What should I charge for this? How much do you charge for this? A lot of my other law firm owners, we all ask each other, what do you charge? What do you charge? What do you charge? And we all try to almost peg ourselves the same. um, but because we're trying to, what happens is if you lower your prices, right, you make it harder for someone else to charge what they're actually worth, right? Because obviously someone is going to go to the cheaper person. So I always recommend don't be the cheapest. Cheapest also have really bad connotations. Oh, it's cheap, so it's not a good service. You sort of want to peg yourself somewhere in the middle. Um, so that really the client is coming to you because they want to work with you, not from a price point. So you need to be able to differentiate yourself so that a client wants to work with you, right? That's why the differentiation in marketing is so, so important, because generally we all charge more or less the same. So how do we calculate the hourly rate? I always say, take your personal expenses and your business expenses, and then you need to reverse calculate your hourly rate. So say, for example, your personal and business expenses are 80,000 Rand per month together, and you're working 20 days a month. So we take the 80,000 divided by 20, it gives us 4,000 Rand per day. That means you need to bill 4,000 Rand per day to actually meet that requirement, to meet your expenses, to cover your expenses, right? And if you divide that by 8 hours, right? Because you're probably going to work 8 hours, it gives you 500 Rand per hour. So you should charge 500 Rand per hour. But, and this is the big but, not every hour is a billable hour, right? Especially as a law firm owner, you have lots of business administration stuff that you need to do. So you need to build what we call like some fat into the number to compensate for the fact that not every hour is a billable hour. It might be that you work 8 hours a day, but only 4 hours are billable, right? So I always say take that number and increase it. In this case, for our scenario, I've doubled it. And so we actually charge 1,000 Rand per hour to get to that hourly rate. So as a minimum, you charge 1,000 Rand per hour, and you have to have 4 billable hours a day to meet your personal and business expenses, right? And that's to meet. That's not to make a profit also. Just think about it. So if you want to make a profit, you actually should increase it by another 1,000 Rand and be charging something like 1,500, right? Because you need to have a profit margin as well. Same with the flat fee model. You need to ask yourself, okay, what are your business and your personal expenses? Say that's 80,000 Rand per month. And you do anti-nuptial contracts only, for example, and you charge 5,000 Rand per anti-nuptial contract. So you take that 80,000 and you divide it by 5,000 Rand, and that gives you a number of 16. That means on a monthly basis, to meet your expenses, to cover those expenses, you need to register 16 anti-nuptial contracts per month. That means you need to meet with 16 new couples every month, right? So I find a lot of law firms don't only have one service, they have a couple of services. Because if you look at that number, 16 new clients every month, it's a lot to try to reach. So you might want to, if you're doing anti-nuptial contracts, you're a notary, you might want to do apostilles as well. And because you're at the deeds office, you might want to do conveyancing as well, because you are there anyway, and bring in some services and some money from those services. Then some people, they charge a flat fee model and an hourly rate, but they also charge a separate consultation fee, which is different to their hourly rate. That's up to you if you want to charge a separate fee. You need to ask yourself, are you going to require a deposit before you begin? Is this a matter where you want a monthly retainer? Or are you going to wait until you've completed the matter and then bill the client? You need to figure out your billing practices and how that works for you. We also have contingency fees in South Africa. So what this means is that if your client wins the case, then you as the attorney receive a percentage of whatever amount they won their case by, right? Often you see this in medical negligence cases. And then there's something called capped fees. Some people will say, okay, this is my hourly rate, but I'm going to cap it at this amount, maybe per month, right? I've seen this happen because some clients like, oh, it's going to be so expensive. I don't want to pay more than X amount. So we say, okay, we'll charge you an hourly rate up until that X amount. We can do it often this happens with debt collection. It's something I'm seeing becoming more and more prevalent, especially with clients saying, no, I don't want to pay more than a certain amount. And then we have sliding scale fees. You see this in conveyancing, where we charge, the greater the value of the property, the more we would charge. So it's a sliding scale. And like we said, you need to consider your payment plans. How are you going to get paid, right? Are you getting paid with a deposit? Are you being paid monthly? Are you being paid when the matter has been completed? It's totally up to you, and you need to ask yourself, for these types of services, how does the pricing model usually work? And how does the payment model usually work? Lisa, do you have anything to add?
I think when it comes to, I know it can be a whole topic by itself, but when it comes to choosing your pricing model, I think if you're just starting out, I think it's best to um, experiment. So you choose a couple, you choose a few models, and you see perhaps a different pricing model per type of matter, or maybe you try to blend two types of pricing models I don't think it's a one size fits all. I don't think it's a wise decision to do a one size fits all, to say everything is going to be on a sliding scale, or everything is going to be value based pricing, or everything is going to be billable hour. I think in the long run, whatever pricing model, whatever hybrid works for you, I think at the end of the day, you should have more than one. You should be charging on more than one type of pricing model, so that again, you're getting that. At the end of the day, it's about cash flow, profitability, money in the business account. So I think if you, in my opinion, if you have more than one pricing model that your firm utilizes, or maybe a hybrid version, then of course that should have an impact on your cash flow and not restrict your firm to collecting fees in only one way, thereby restricting your cash flow. So I think a good starting point is to experiment with a few, allocate it maybe per type of matter, and then eventually settle on at least two pricing models, or a hybrid pricing model for your firm in the long run. And then further to that, in the even longer term, you want to constantly be reviewing your pricing models to see whether you're making a profit, what's the impact on the cash flow, etc.
100%. And the cash flow is very important. You need to understand how much is coming in, and you need to understand how much is going out and if the business is making a profit. And you need to understand if someone is falling behind, you need to be able to pick that up in your account and go, okay, this account is behind, they haven't been paying. You need to follow up with them. Um, a lot of firms struggle with clients who don't pay. Um, and that is why I think it's very important to not put a lump sum on the client right at the end of the matter. I think a lot of
Mm,
clients can't pay this huge sum at the end of the matter. I think if you split it up into monthly or weekly, to make it easier for the client, or some sort of payment plan or installments, pay a little bit, then that's a lot easier on the client. Many clients I find can't afford to pay a lump sum like that, especially with these huge matters. Even in conveyancing, we find it's a lot of money for a lot of clients, and they are not aware of all the fees involved in the matter, right? And
mm,
how attorneys charge. So it's very important to sit down with your client, especially when you're talking about the mandate and explaining the mandate, explain how you charge, right? Explain what the bill
yeah,
means,
yeah.
because there's nothing worse than having a disciplinary hearing because you've overcharged, or because the client's too happy, or they badmouth you in the public space. You don't want something like that to happen. I always say rather be upfront and open, than to try and like pull the client right at the end of the month and they get the shock of their lives. Legal fees are not cheap, right? We're
Yeah.
not cheap. It is to a certain extent a luxury service, that only the rich can afford some of the services, right?
Mm,
Litigation in particular is extremely expensive. Um, but unfortunately, the work that we do is takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, and we
mm,
also need to get paid at the end of the day. So we need to balance that. Um, so I know we totally over time. It's now 20 past 12. Um, Lisa and I did do a whole Instagram live on marketing. And part of marketing is also networking, right? And you can go and watch that Instagram live on networking. it's very important for business growth that each attorney in the law firm has a personal brand as well as the business brand, right? There needs to be marketing for the business. You need to ask yourself, how are you going to market on LinkedIn? Are you going to do Instagram? Are you going to have some sort of social media online presence? Are you only going to write articles for legal magazines? Is it your website? How are you going to market? How are your potential clients going to know about you, right? Where are your potential clients? What do they read? Which platform are they on, right? You need to ask yourself, how are you going to compete with your competitors? Um, Most law firms do invest in marketing. At some point, you do need to invest in marketing because it really impacts your business growth. Most law firms that I know do invest in networking. Majority of people interested in my law firm comes from networking. I'll probably get more people from networking than from my social media marketing. But the two together are both instrumental, right? I think networking is just as important as marketing. And then client relationships. It's very important that you make sure that your clients are happy, and that you um, keep improving your services, right? Keep bettering yourself, keep bettering your law firm. And it's very important that you can automate as much as possible in your law firm, but also personalize your services as much as possible. You want your service delivery to be exceptional, especially if you want to make it in this industry, because that's what we're selling. We're selling our services. Lisa, do you want me to quickly summarize before we end, or do you
Yeah.
want to add anything? So let's quickly
No.
summarize all the points that you need to consider, right? Your capital investment of funding, where you're getting your funding. What type of business are you going to have? Sole proprietorship, partnership, incorporation. What is the name of your business? Are you going to have logos? What kind of services are you going to offer? What is your niche? You need to register your business with the LPC and possibly the CIPC. You need to have business bank accounts and trust accounts. You need to have professional indemnity insurance. We didn't speak about this, but this is also something that's very important. And you need to protect yourself against cyber criminals and cyber risk. You need to have a Fidelity Fund certificate. You need to have a RMCP. You need to register with the Financial Intelligence Center. You need to get equipment. You need to get software. You need to think about marketing. Um, who are your ideal clients? How are you going to get your clients to engage with you? How are you going to brand your business? You need to talk about what type of office or work environment you are going to have. You don't want to perpetuate the toxic work environment, so you want to create one that is loving in a sense, or better than what you have been experiencing, and break those cycles. Are you going to be hybrid? Are you going to be remote? Are you only practicing in a particular province or city, or are you practicing for the whole of South Africa? How many hours do you want to work? What is your pricing model? Are you going to have billable hours? You can have an hourly rate. Are you going to have a flat fee model? Are you going to have a hybrid model? And then you need to ask yourself, what is your revenue target and your client target? How many clients do you need to make this business successful? How much money do you need to be making to make the business successful? You need to consider your cash flow restrictions or requirements. It's very important that we don't run a business on charity, but you do actually make some money. Otherwise, what was the point of your business? Unless you're an NPO, the whole point of business is to make money. I hope that you found this talk informative and that it helped you to consider everything that goes into starting a law firm practice in South Africa. I hope it didn't scare you away. It's not impossible to do. It is very doable, but you need to have the mindset to do it, and then you need to have certain skills to do it. It's not for everyone, and that's okay. But you need to make sure that you are totally ready for it and that you've thought about all these things. Thank you, Elisa, for having me on your Instagram Live. It was great to be here as always. And I look forward to working with you next year.
Always a pleasure. Today was a bumper episode, but it's fine because we started late because of me. And yeah, this is a whole can of worms, I think, in a good sense. And if those of you that will watch the replay, if there's something that you want to hear more about, then please leave a comment or wherever you see this, and send us a DM, to let us know. Maybe you want us to unpack some of the aspects. It was a lot to cram into one live, and we are planning for the new year soon. So this business side of things, the legal entrepreneurship, is something we want us to unpack further. Um, and of course, if we in our personal capacities can come alongside and support you, because like we say, it is doable. You just need the right information and the right people in your corner. So if we can help you in our personal capacities through whatever we are offering, then also feel free to reach out to us either here on Instagram or our LinkedIn DMs, and I think we'll be happy to interact and assist all aspiring law firm owners, even those that have gone into it and maybe are thinking of bailing, or you're at a crossroads, you're not sure what to do, things have not worked out. You could also reach out to us and we could perhaps assist you in remedying the situation, right? So thank you for your attention. Those of you that were on the live, and of course, if you made it this far in our video, then you've done well. So thank you, my friends. And I'm sure you'll have it up on your social media before I am, because you're better with the whole editing thing than I am. But yeah, I hope people get a lot of value out of this. As full as it was, I think it was not without value. So thank you for adding your 80%, and thank me for adding my 2 cents to 2%, 20%.
Thank you for hosting me and for having us. Um, I wish you the best over the holidays. I know the festive season is coming. Many of us are shutting down over the festive season. So I wish everyone a lovely break and a lovely festive season. And hopefully we'll see each other in the new year, and continue with these Instagram lives. Like Lisa said, if there's anything that you want us to discuss or go into deeper, please let us know. And also, if you want us to be on another platform, I know we're both on LinkedIn as well. If you would like us to do some LinkedIn lives, please let us know.
Okay. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.